Today, folks, let's have a look at another accent, the accent circonflexe. Now, what is an accent circonflexe? Well, I call it the hat. The hat. It's a little hat, basically, that you put on the letters A or E or I or O or U. So A, E, O, U. All these letters, these vowels, can have an accent circonflexe, okay? So you're going to tell me, what is it for? Well, when you have it on the E, it makes the sound E, okay? A bit like an accent grave, in effect, okay? And you can prove me wrong, I don't know, but it depends where you are in France, okay? And we might pronounce our E differently. That's the way I pronounce it. I am from the Burgundy region, and that's the way we do it. So, E, okay? E. Now, you will find the accent circonflexe on words such as forêt. Can you see that? Forêt. You will find the accents such as ma, okay, or pat. I'll tell you in a minute what they mean, by the way. Or fête, or hôtel, hôpital, maître. I'm going to concentrate on these examples, and the reason why I did not translate them, because there is a trick to it. In Old French, and probably it goes back to maybe when the English and French Normans invaded back in 1100 England, not that I know nothing about history, as you can tell, but somewhere in the 11th century, anyway. What happened? Well, the French invaded England and came and spoke French, and maybe somehow the languages melted together. And what happens? The accent circonflexe, if you look very carefully, replaces an S. So you could, in effect, if you knew that after the letter which has an accent circonflexe there is an S, you would know what forêt is. Have a look. Try. If you put the S after the E, ignore the accent circonflexe, what does it become? Forest. Exactly. It becomes forest. Okay, so we know that forêt is a forest. Now have a look at ma. Now remember, where is the accent circonflexe? Yeah, on the A. Now put the S after the A. Mast. Ta-da! Mast, as in the mast of the boat. Okay, le ma. Have a look at pat. Now pat is slightly more tricky, but you could, paste or pasta. Okay, paste or pasta, and that means dough as well. La pâte, okay, la pâte, okay, it means pasta. Now have a look at fête. Now fête, if you put an S after the E, fest, festival or festivity, it means party, okay? Now have a look at hotel. Well, hotel, hostel, exactly, it's an hotel, and hôpital, hospital. Can you see the pattern? What about the last one? Last one is a little tricky. Now this one changes slightly, but it's master, okay? Master something as an important person, okay? Can you see where the circonflexe comes from now? Yeah? Cool. I like this little trick. I really love teaching that. Okay, folks, that's it on the accent circonflexe. Hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed teaching you. Check out the other videos on accents because they are very, very useful. And why don't you join my little community and subscribe to my website? And have a look at my awesome learnfrenchwithalexa.com website. That's it for me. Au revoir. À bientôt. Bisous, bisous. Bonjour. Today we are going to have a look at the tréma accent. So you're going to tell me, what is the tréma accent? Well, an accent like all other accents that you will find in French. Okay, we have covered the accent grave, accent aigu, accent circonflexe. Today we are looking at the tréma accent, accent tréma. Okay, it is also known in French as a diérèse, okay, or an umlaut as well. Now, what you need to know about the tréma is that it looks like that. It's two little dots, okay, on top of usually an E or an I. So an E, I mean a E in French, and an I mean a E in French, okay? So it would look like that. Have a look. Right, okay, so a U, two dots, or an I, two dots, okay? Not a U, sorry, an E, two dots, and an I, two dots. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry about that. Okay, now, very rarely you are going to find it on the U, two dots. Okay, that's very rare. Okay, so what you need to know is that it can be found on the E and a E, and sometimes on the U, but quite rarely. Now, why? Why do we have such an accent? Well, it doesn't quite change the sound of the letter itself, but what it does is that when you have two vowels next to each other, and one of which had tréma on top, it changes the pronunciation of the word, okay? So these two vowels next to each other are here, so it can be both pronounced, okay? So, for example, a good example would be maïs, maïs, okay? So if I have maïs, have a look, M-A-I, tréma, S. Now, I pronounce this word not me, but maïs. Why? Because there is a tréma on top of the I, and therefore I must separate it from the A and not pronounce the AI together. And that's the purpose of the tréma, okay? So the tréma is used when two vowels are next to each other and both must be pronounced. Is this clear? Now, I use maïs as an example because if you did not have the tréma, ding, the word is mais, okay? And mais is a French word. It means but, okay? I am tired, but I fancy going to the gym, for example. But, okay? That word. Now, add the tréma, ding, it becomes maïs because I'm separating the I from the A, okay? So, this tréma accent can be found in the words such as naïve, okay, which means naive, Noël, Noël, okay, which means Christmas. The name, proper name, Anaïs, okay, that's the name, Anaïs. This verb, haïr, which means to hate, okay, haïr. Another word, laïque, laïque, okay, which means non-religious or secular. Another word, faïence, faïence, which is a pottery or earthenware. Or canoë, canoë, okay, and canoë means canoeing, okay, and you can see that I'm pronouncing the O and the E very differently because it has a tréma on top of the E, okay. As I said to you earlier on, you can find the tréma on top of the U, but it is extremely rare, okay. The only word I can think of, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's on top of aigu, aigu, okay, which means acute or high pitch, and when the word is feminine, okay, so you will find it on top of the U, though the correct spelling should be of the tréma being on top of the E and not the U. It always comes after the first vowel, okay, but that's another story, so don't worry too much about the spelling of aigu, okay, and when to use the tréma on top of the U, because this happens really rarely. Okay, so I'm going to finish now with the use of the tréma in a sentence. I could say, for example, Anaïs mange du maïs à Noël sur son canoë. Okay, and it means Anaïs mange, that means eating, du maïs, some sweet corn, à Noël, for Christmas or at Christmas, sur son canoë, on her canoe. Okay, that's a bit random, but I wanted you to see it in a full sentence. But remember, tréma accent is really rare, actually. Out of all the words we have, it represents a really minute proportion. Okay? Now, that's it for me on the tréma. I hope you understood the lesson. I tried my best to explain it as clearly as possible, okay? And that was our accent, okay? Now, why don't you have a look at other videos on accent for me, okay? So you are aware of every accent we have in French, as in the grave accent, acute accent, circumflex accent, and so on. Also, have a look at www.learnfrenchwithalexa.com because I take you, or your French, not take you, your French to the next level. Okay, and have a look at my Patreon page because I ask for support. And why don't you have a look at the Patreon page? Okay, that's it for me. Au revoir, à bientôt, bisous, bisous. Bonjour, today let's have a look at another accent. I'm going to cover with you la Cedilla or Cedilla. Okay, you're going to tell me what is la Cedilla. I've always wondered what la Cedilla was. Are you? No, okay, or is it just me? Now, la Cedilla is a little accent that you find under the C in French. I'm sure you have come across it before. If you're interested in learning French, you must have wondered, but what is that and what is its purpose? Well, I'm going to tell you. La Cedilla is used and for one thing. It is basically always placed before a letter O or U or A. So you will always find it in front of these three vowels. Okay, so you have the C and a little 5 underneath. Okay, now when you see that and when you see the little 5 underneath, which is called the Cedilla, you must pronounce that sound S. Okay, S. And that's the purpose of a Cedilla. If it comes before the O or the U or the A, you must absolutely pronounce S. So that would be so or su or sa. That's what the Cedilla is for. So I think the best way for me is to give you an example, okay? So a few examples. So have a look at this word here. La leçon. La leçon. Okay, now la leçon means the lesson and it has a cedilla because if it didn't, it will be le con, and that's another word completely. Le reçu, that's another word. Le reçu, and that's the receipt. Okay, le reçu. Again, it has a cedilla to make the sound se. Otherwise, it would be le reçu, and that's not even a word. Français. Français. Well, je suis française. I am French. I need the cedilla. Otherwise, it will be francaise. Okay, and that doesn't mean anything. Okay. Here's another word. Le garçon. Le garçon. And that's the boy. Okay. Again, will be garçon, and that's not even a word without the cedilla. Okay. Le caleçon. Le caleçon, and that's a boxer short, okay? The boxer short, okay? Le caleçon. Without it, it will be le calcon, and that's not a word. Here's another one. La façade. La façade, okay? La façade without the cedilla would be la facade, and that's not a word. Now, la façade is the wall, the front wall of a building, okay? And you've got it in this word here. Ça va. I'm okay. Ça va, okay? Again, without it, it would be cava, and that's not a word, okay? So, all these words mean nothing to a French person unless you have the cedilla put under the C, okay? And that's why it is very important to know how to pronounce these words. Remember, the cedilla, the little 5 under the C, is a sound. C, sound. Of course, another way of creating a S sound in French is by using two S instead of a cedilla, okay? So, but not instead of. You will see some words with double S. Well, I can think of one example, this word, le message, the message, okay? Le message. So sometimes in order to create the S sound, you will have either the cedilla or the double S, okay? Of course, if you want to make the sound K in front of a O, a U, or a A, you would not put the cedilla. So you've got words without the cedilla, such as l'alcool. This is alcohol. L'alcool. Or you've got another word, école. École, which is school. As you see, there is no cedilla, and we say the sound K. Now you have cul-de-sac. Cul-de-sac, okay, in English. You know what the cul-de-sac is, yeah? That's a road where you don't have any other roads. Yeah, I'm not sure what the translation for cul-de-sac is. Now, you have the word écume. Écume, which is the foam or froth, okay? So these words, though they have a O after the C, or U or A, they do not have a cedilla because we want to make the sound K and not S. Now, one thing you need to know about the cedilla, okay, and then I'll leave you to it, it is never placed in front of a or E, so an E or I, okay, or E, okay, because C in front of these two vowels has already the sound S, okay. I know it's confusing, but if you have an E or an I after the C, it's already the sound S. You don't need a cedilla for that, okay. So words such as acide, that's acid, okay, look, you don't need the cedilla, it has already the sound S. Words such as décevant, disappointing, okay, décevant. Fiancé, fiancé is another one, okay. All these words, and you've got lots, already have the sound S. You do not need a cedilla because it comes with an E or an I, okay. So as I said to you, and let's rewind for a minute, okay, only when you have the letter O or A or U. But one thing is very interesting, and I'm going to let you with this thought here, leave you with this thought, is that sometimes the same word can have a cedilla or not, but not quite conjugated the same way. So a verb such as recevoir, recevoir to receive, okay, because it has an E after the C, we say se sound without the cedilla. But when you conjugate it, look what happens. Je reçois. Now suddenly we're using the same word as such, but conjugated we need to put a cedilla. Okay, so je reçois has to have a cedilla because we're using the C with an O. Okay, and that means I receive. Do you understand? I can think of another one as well. Remplacer, to replace. Here there is no cedilla, is there? No, because it is an E after the C. But look at us replacing, how we say that. Remplaçant. Okay, remplaçant. Here it has a cedilla. Why? Because it has an A after the C. I can think of a very nice one. Here's this one. France, France, C-E, France. But then when you say français, French, when you use this adjective, then it has a cedilla. Why? Because we have an A after the C. Okay, now this is my lesson on cedilla. Please comment if you are unclear about things or clear about things. I don't know. Now, I'm going to leave you with this sentence, and why don't you read it with me? Le garçon français reçoit un caleçon pour Noël. Le garçon français, the French boy, receives un caleçon, a boxer short, pour Noël, for Christmas. And you see, I have made good use of my cedillas. Okay, that's it for me. Why don't you have a look at the other series on accents? Okay, they are really, really important, I'm sure, and very useful to you. And why don't you subscribe to my YouTube channel? Learn French with Alexa, with me, Alexa Polidoro. Okay, that's it for me. Have a look at my website as well, Alexa, learnfrenchwithalexa.com. Au revoir, à bientôt, bis bis, zou, zou. Bonjour, today let's learn how to ask questions with the French word où, where, as in, where is my t-shirt? Oh, why did I say that? Okay, folks, what I'm going to do with you today is teach you how to use the adverb, interrogative adverb où, which means where, okay, in a question, okay? And you're going to learn that we have different ways of asking questions. Now, I'm concentrating in où today, okay? Not why, who, where, when, and so on, just où today. I'm going to use two very simple examples, though one of them is slightly harder. The first one uses only the present tense, such as where is the restaurant, okay? So using où, and we know it means where in the questions, how do you say where is the restaurant? Well, we say it in very different ways in French. Here's one way. Où est le restaurant? Quite simply, où est le restaurant? Where is the restaurant? Okay, very simple and a pure translation from English here. But you could do it this way too. Où est-ce qu'est le restaurant? Où est-ce qu'est le restaurant? Now, in France, asking questions, we often use est-ce que in our questions, okay? So be aware of that. So, où est-ce qu'est le restaurant? So basically we have où est le restaurant, and in the middle we've added est-ce que. And we add that a lot in French questions. Now these are what we call the more formal way of asking questions, okay? But these are spoken as well. Now let me show you a couple of, or three, more familiar, more spoken way of asking question with où. So have a look at this example here. We could say, il est où le restaurant? Il est où le restaurant? It is where the restaurant, okay? And here, où is no longer the beginning of the question. It is in the middle, okay? But everything is about the intonation of your voice, okay? So you ask a question, okay? So you could say, il est où le restaurant? But you could also say, le restaurant, il est où? Okay, so suddenly, où is at the end of the question. So, le restaurant, il est où? So the restaurant, it is where? Okay, I know it sounds a bit weird in English, but it works in French, especially when familiar, a conversation go on or spoken, French. Now, another way of using où, you could say, le restaurant est où? Le restaurant est où? The restaurant is where? Okay, and again, that's all to do with the intonation of your voice. Okay, so we've seen a very simple example using où and then is, where is. So, où est le restaurant? So have a look at this again. Okay, so if you wanted to use the verb manger, for example, eat, to eat, and you wanted to say, where does he eat? Well, it will look like that in French. Où mange-t-il? Où mange-t-il? Okay, what we've done is inverted the verb to the subject. So verb first, mange, and then il, the subject. Now, what we've done as well is we added a T in the middle. And why is that? Well, because if you did not have the T, it will sound like où mange-il, which sounds weird in French, and hence why we add a T quite often. We make the liaison in French, okay, so it flows better. Où mange-t-il? Okay, so that means where is he eating, or where does he eat? Okay, another way of using this question could be où est-ce qu'il mange? And again, I'm using the est-ce que, the famous est-ce que we use in questions in French. Où est-ce qu'il mange? Where does he eat? Où est-ce qu'il mange? Okay, quite simply, here you don't have an hyphen and a T, an extra T. Il mange is he eats, or he is eating, okay? So, où est-ce qu'il mange? Or another example using mange again and où. Il mange où? Again, we've put où at the end of the question. He is eating where? Il mange où? Okay, so this is another simple example using où and the present tense. I would like you now to have a look at the next examples, which are slightly harder because I'm using a passé composé. If you're not sure about the passé composé, please refer back to my many videos on passé composé. We would like, for example, to say, where did you buy these shoes or your shoes, okay? Now, we know for a fact that I bought or you bought is tu as acheté. Again, if you're not sure about this, please refer back to my passé composé videos, okay? Now, how do you put tu as acheté with where, où? We want to say, where did you buy? Well, have a look at that. We invert a and tu and acheté. So, où as-tu acheté? And if you want to say your shoes, you add tes chaussures. Où as-tu acheté tes chaussures? Where did you buy your shoes? Où as-tu acheté tes chaussures? Now, note that there is a hyphen between the a and the tu, okay? This is when we invert the subjects and the verb. Où as-tu acheté tes chaussures? Now, again, you could say, using the famous est-ce que, où est-ce que tu as acheté tes chaussures? Où est-ce que tu as acheté tes chaussures? Est-ce que comes right after this interrogative adverb. Where is it that you bought your shoes? Basically, that's what it means, okay? Now, this is the more obviously written way of asking the question, but if you want it to be more spoken as in familiar, used more familiar form, you could say, tu as acheté tes chaussures où? Tu as acheté tes chaussures où? It's quite simple. In a way, you don't have to invert any subjects and verb. You keep it as it is. Tu as acheté tes chaussures, and then you add your adverb où. Tu as acheté tes chaussures où? Where did you buy your shoes? And again, you could say, tes chaussures, tu les as achetées où? That's another way of asking question. Your shoes, where did you buy them? Okay, so tes chaussures, tu les as achetées où? Okay, now I know it's very hard to grasp, but it's all very fast. But why don't you watch this video again and have a look at different ways of asking questions? It's quite simple. Use a sentence and make up your own questions, okay? So use the answer, such as, I ate at the restaurant yesterday, and how would you put that into a question? Where did you eat yesterday, for example? Okay? So why don't you leave a comment asking a question using où, where, okay? I'd love to see that. And subscribe to my YouTube channel. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel. And also have a look at my awesome learnfrenchwithalexa.com website. That's it for me. Au revoir. À bientôt. Bisous, bisous. Bonjour. Today we are going to learn how to ask question in French using the word quand, which is when. Okay, so quand means when, okay? And what I'm going to teach you today is give you a few examples using when, quand, okay, and show you that we can do it in so many different ways, some being more formal than others, okay? Let's have a look at a few examples using quand, which means when. And by the way, do not say quand. That does not exist in French, okay? I know you are there. Let's start with an example quite easy, but yet quite hard, using the present tense. Now, this is my first sentence. Quand commence le spectacle? Quand commence le spectacle? Now, if you saw that in the book, in the French book, what would you think? Now, we know that quand means when. Commence means start. And le spectacle, the spectacle or the show, okay? So when does the show start, okay? Whereby in English you have the does, okay, and then start. We don't in French. We go straight to the verb. So, quand commence le spectacle? When does the show start? Okay. Another way of using quand is this way. Quand est-ce que le spectacle commence? Now, I've said that before on my other video on questions that we use est-ce que a lot in French, okay? And it comes right after your adverb interrogative here. Quand? Quand est-ce que le spectacle commence? When is it that the show starts? Okay, quand est-ce que le spectacle commence? Now, another way of using quand, you could do it this way. Il commence quand le spectacle? Il commence quand le spectacle? By putting quand in the middle of the sentence and raising your voice, that's a question as well. Il commence as in il, referring to le spectacle, because le spectacle is masculine, well done. Now, il commence quand le spectacle? It starts when the show. I know it sounds weird in English, but in French it's perfectly fine. Now, though it is more colloquial and conversational than the first two I've just given you. Now, another way of asking the question using quand. Le spectacle, il commence quand? Okay, a bit the same as the one before. Le spectacle, the show, il commence quand? It starts when. Now again, il refers to it, okay, the show. Because we don't have such a third word as it, okay? We refer to everything as il or elle. Now another way of asking question. Le spectacle commence quand? The show starts when? Okay, and this time the quand is at the end of the question, okay? So le spectacle commence quand? Okay, so have a look at this again. I know it's very tricky, but I just want you to be aware of when you can hear a question and you will hear it in these ways, okay? There is not only one way to say it. Quand commence le spectacle? Quand est-ce que le spectacle commence? Il commence quand, le spectacle? Le spectacle, il commence quand? It's a bit the same as the one before. Le spectacle commence quand? Okay, so these are the few ways you could use a question using a présent. Now, another example that I would like to include into my lesson, and because it's a little tricky, I want to include elle or il in my question. For example, you want to say, when is she arriving at the station? Or you want to say, when arrive she at the station? More like in French. Well, it looks like that. Quand arrive-t-elle à la gare? Quand arrive-t-elle à la gare? Now, what do you notice here? That's right. We have put a T between the arrive and the L. And so you are going to ask me, but why? Well, it is there purely because it sounds better than quand arrive-elle à la gare? Okay, so we've got to make a liaison. And because there is no consonant at the end of arrive and no consonant at the beginning of elle, okay, we've got to add one in the middle. And we add a T. So, quand arrive-t-elle à la gare? Can you say that? Quand arrive-t-elle à la gare? And it means when is she arriving at the station? Or in English, you could translate it as well as when does she arrive at the station? Okay, remember we don't have does. Okay, here doesn't exist. You go straight to the verb. Now, second example using the same sentence. Quand est-ce qu'elle arrive à la gare? Quand est-ce qu'elle arrive à la gare? When is it that she is arriving at the station? Okay, now again using est-ce que because we use est-ce que all the time. Quand est-ce qu'elle arrive à la gare? Now using this example again, we could say elle arrive quand à la gare? Elle arrive quand à la gare? Now again, by putting quand in the middle of the sentence, it's a question as well. She is arriving when at the station? Okay, elle arrive quand à la gare? Okay, so again, another way of asking questions. Have a look at my example 2 here before we go on to example 3. Quand arrive-t-elle à la gare? Quand est-ce qu'elle arrive à la gare? Elle arrive quand à la gare? Okay? Now, I know it's fast, okay? Nothing stops you from watching this video again and trying to stop maybe freezing the screen and have a look at it slowly. Right. Using a third example, and because I want you to be aware of what it can look like, I've chosen the passé composé inside my question with quand. Why? Because it's décomposé, okay? Because it comes in 3 bits here. Now it comes with a past participle, with the auxiliary and the subject pronoun. Should I say subject pronoun, auxiliary, past participle? But which order do they come in? Now have a look at this one. Using the same example, quand arrive-t-elle à la gare? We want to put this in the past tense. When did she arrive at the station? Here we go. Quand est-elle arrivée à la gare? Okay, now have a look at that. There is no T in the middle of E and L because we already have a T at the end of E. So, quand est-elle arrivée à la gare? when did she arrive at the station? Now, again, we don't have such a thing as did or does, okay? You go straight into the verb. And in this case, because it's a passé composé, start with the auxiliary verb we are using. In this case, it's to be, être, and not to have, avoir. Another way of asking question using a passé composé, quand est-ce que, and here we have est-ce que again, quand est-ce qu'elle est arrivée à la gare? When did she arrive at the station? Quand est-ce qu'elle est arrivée à la gare? When did she arrive at the station? This one is slightly easier because all you do is put elle est arrivée à la gare and then you put it just before that you put est-ce que. Okay, so it's the sentence in the right order with est-ce que before that. Quand est-ce qu'elle est arrivée à la gare? Très bien. And the last example using the passé composé in the same sentence, elle est arrivée quand à la gare? Again, by putting quand in the middle. Elle est arrivée quand à la gare? She arrived when at the station? Okay, elle est arrivée quand à la gare? So, let's have a look at this passé composé one more time. Quand est-elle arrivée à la gare? Quand est-ce qu'elle est arrivée à la gare? Elle est arrivée quand à la gare? Now, I know it's a lot of information in such a small amount of time, but why don't you watch it again? What you need to be aware of is what is when in French? We know it's quand, we've learned this, and when or where can it be placed in a question? Well, as you may notice, it's either at the beginning here or in the middle. That's the most natural way for us to ask question with quand. Okay? Are we okay with that? Watch this video again if you're not confident, but what I would like you to do now is try to leave a comment using a question quand. Ask me a question using quand. Why not? Okay? Now, remember to subscribe to my YouTube channel and have a look at learnfrenchwithalexa.com, my website. That's it for me. I hope to see you soon and I hope I have not confused you too much. Au revoir, à bientôt. Bisous, bisous. Bonjour, let's have a look at asking question using the French word pourquoi, which means why. Pourquoi pas? Okay, folks, what I'd like to teach you now is how to ask question using pourquoi. Now, pourquoi, very popular pourquoi, French word, which means why. Now, if I were to use an example using, so what I'm going to try to do is using this interrogative adverb using a present tense and then using a négation. Okay, négation with ne pas, which is very tricky. And I think you should be aware of this, of how to ask question using a negation. Now, let's have a look at this first example here. We have, pourquoi es-tu ici? Now, pourquoi es-tu ici? So, why are you here? Pourquoi es-tu ici? Okay, ici meaning here. Now, es-tu, are you? Okay, we inverted the subjects and the verb, and that makes the question quite simply. Another way of asking this question could be as well, pourquoi est-ce que tu es ici? Pourquoi est-ce que tu es ici? Now, this is the slow version. Pourquoi est-ce que tu es ici? Okay. Pourquoi est-ce que tu es ici? Why are you here? Now, I said that quite a few times now on my asking question lessons that est-ce que is very, very used in French, okay, all the time. Very used, I'm not even sure that's English. Ignore. Okay. Pourquoi est-ce que tu es ici? Why is it that you are here? Okay. And asking pourquoi again by putting pourquoi at the end of the question could be tu es ici pourquoi? You are here. Why? Okay. The first two examples are very common. You know, we use them more in a literature sense, while the last one is more conversational, colloquial. You know, tu es ici pourquoi? Ou t'es ici pourquoi? Okay. Now, these are my three questions. Pourquoi es-tu ici? Pourquoi est-ce que tu es ici? Tu es ici pourquoi? Now, obviously, this is one in a million examples. You could tell me one of your examples using pourquoi in the present tense, okay? Now, using a negation, it becomes slightly more tricky when using any interrogative adverb, okay? Such as pourquoi, or quand, or où, and so on. Now, if I wanted to say, why don't you eat carrots? Okay, how would you do that? Why don't you eat carrots? Now you're going to tell me, okay, that's complex because there is a negation and we don't have such a thing in French as don't, do we? We don't. So, pourquoi, and then you use the negation, ne, and then the verb, mange, and then the subject pronoun, tu, and then the last part of the negation, pas. Pourquoi ne manges-tu pas de carottes? Pourquoi ne manges-tu pas de carottes? Now, I know it sounds really complex, especially then when you put the sentence together in the right order is tu ne manges pas de carottes. And so if you have a look at the proper way we say you do not eat carrots and the way it's put in the interrogative form, then it becomes all jumbled up. So, pourquoi ne manges-tu pas de carottes? Why aren't you eating any carrots? Okay. Now, pourquoi manges-tu pas de carottes? Now, notice the hyphen between the mange and the tu is here, okay, because it's a question and we put these together always. Now, another way of asking this question using est-ce que, remember, est-ce que is part of the French vocabulary on asking questions all the time. So, using est-ce que, pourquoi est-ce que, and then you put your full sentence. Tu ne manges pas de carottes. Pourquoi est-ce que tu ne manges pas de carottes? Why is it that you do not eat carrots? Okay, is that okay? Right. Now, another way of asking question, again, using carotte as an example, you could say, pourquoi tu ne manges pas de carottes? Now, we've asked pourquoi, okay, at the very beginning, and then we put the sentence the way it is. Tu ne manges pas de carottes. You do not eat carrots. So, pourquoi tu ne manges pas de carottes? Okay, so that's another way of using pourquoi. Now, let's have a look at this again and repeat them. Pourquoi ne manges-tu pas de carottes? Pourquoi est-ce que tu ne manges pas de carottes? Et pourquoi tu ne manges pas de carottes? Okay, so I know these are very hard to grasp, but I wanted to show you, especially if you are following my lessons, on negation, that sometimes it comes on negation, on questions, that sometimes it comes with negations, and I wanted you to be aware of where to put the ne and where to put the pas. Okay. Now, another tricky one is the passé composé in a question. So when I mean passé composé, it's the past tense, okay? And we know that past tense comes in 3 bits, okay? The subject pronoun, the auxiliary verbs to be or to have, and then the past participle. But which order do you put them in when asking questions? Now, pourquoi? I'm going to ask you. Here's a question. Pourquoi est-il allé à la piscine s'il était malade? Now that's the example I've chosen. Pourquoi est-il allé à la piscine s'il était malade? Now, why did he go swimming if he was sick? Okay, why? Pourquoi? Pourquoi est-il allé à la piscine s'il était malade? Now, this one is a little advanced, okay? If you're not an advanced pupil, it might be a little hard to grasp, okay? But if you are of intermediate or advanced level, then it becomes quite a challenge for you, which is really good. Now, pourquoi est-il allé à la piscine s'il était malade? Why did he go swimming if he was sick? Okay, you need to know 2 things here. How do you conjugate the verb aller in the passé composé? And how do you conjugate the verb être in the imperfect tense? And that's all in this question. Il est allé, he went. Il était, he was. Okay? Pourquoi est-il allé à la piscine s'il était malade? I'm asking you, why? Now, another way of asking this question will be by using est-ce que. Now, remember, I'm using est-ce que a lot in my questions. So, pourquoi est-ce qu'il est allé à la piscine s'il était malade? Pourquoi est-ce qu'il est allé à la piscine s'il était malade? Why is it that he went swimming if he was sick? Okay? Pourquoi est-il allé à la piscine s'il était malade? Okay, now using that same example and with pourquoi in another place in the sentence, I could say, s'il était malade, pourquoi est-il allé à la piscine? S'il était malade, pourquoi est-il allé à la piscine? If he was sick, why did he go swimming? Okay, pourquoi est-il allé à la piscine? Now, if you look at it, it's a little bit the same as the first sentence that I use on pourquoi est-il allé à la piscine. Okay, just to show you that we can put pourquoi in different places in the question, and we can ask questions in a very different ways. In France, some of them are more formal than others. Okay, now what I'd like you to do is practice using a passé composé, using a negation. Practice asking questions, because that's where you will have the most difficulty. Even with a normal present tense, to be honest, okay? It comes with practice, I must admit, because we have so many different ways of asking questions, you know, where it is natural in English to say, why didn't you go to school, for example, you know, you've got to understand that we don't have such a thing as did in English, in French, ignore in French, and that you need to know how to use the passé composé of that verb to go in order to say I went. Okay? Now, I'm going to stop here because it becomes very complex. Why don't you watch this video again? It is a complex video. I would like you to watch it again, okay? Once you've done that, let me know how you get on and leave an example using the an interrogative adverb pourquoi. Okay, ask me a question. Pourquoi? I'd love to hear your question. Okay, that's it for me. Hope to see you soon. À bientôt. Au revoir. Bisous, bisous. Bonjour. Today we are going to learn how to ask questions with the French word qui, which means who. Now, we know that qui is who. Okay, now have a look at the spelling. We do not say qui, by the way. QU in French is pronounced que. Okay, so we say qui. And qui means who. Here it is used as an interrogative pronoun and not a relative pronoun. Okay, so be very careful. When I mean relative pronoun, I mean the one that you have in the middle of the sentence. And this is he is the one who has eaten my cake. Okay. So that's what I mean by that. That's not the one we are learning today. We are learning qui as a who stole my cake. Okay, I don't know why my examples are always food related. Probably because I always record before lunch. Now, qui es-tu? Who are you? Qui es-tu? Who are you? Okay, quite simply, you are using qui and you add the verb, which here is inverted. Okay, qui es-tu? Who are you? Okay, you can as well say qui est-ce que tu es? Qui est-ce que tu es? Who is it that you are? Okay, qui est-ce que tu es? Okay, now remember that over the last series of asking questions, okay, my lessons, I told you that est-ce que is used all the time in French, okay, to ask questions. We've got so many different ways of asking questions, okay, but est-ce que is one of the most popular and most used, okay. Now, another way of asking qui es-tu, who are you, it's tu es qui, you are who, tu es qui, but actually quite often a French person will say t'es qui, completely omitting the u of the te, okay, of the tu, okay, so we would say t'es qui toi? T'es qui? Okay. Now, another example using qui could be qui travaille avec vous? Who works with you? Qui travaille avec vous? Who works with you? Okay. Quite simply, travailler means to work. Je travaille. So you could answer Tom travaille avec moi. Tom works with me. Tom travaille avec moi. Okay. Now, another way of asking this question, who works with you, using est-ce que, you could say, qui est-ce qui travaille avec vous? Qui est-ce qui travaille avec vous? And here you will notice we have two qui, okay? One is used as the interrogative word, okay? And the other one as the who. Who is it that who works with you, okay? As the as the relative pronoun. Okay, so another way of asking questions using the passé composé, which means that it's an action that took place in the past and it's gone done over with, is qui a mangé ma tablette de chocolat? Qui a mangé ma tablette de chocolat? Now, qui a mangé? Who has eaten ma tablette, my tablet de chocolat, of chocolate? So my chocolate. Qui a mangé ma tablette de chocolat? That's the way I would ask. Or maybe I should. Qui est-ce qui a mangé ma tablette de chocolat? Okay. Qui est-ce qui a mangé ma tablette de chocolat? Because I had hidden it somewhere in my kitchen where nobody could find it. So qui, who has eaten my tablette de chocolat? Now, so that's another way. Now remember that est-ce que always comes after the question word, okay, qui, okay, here in that case, but we've learned quand as well, and we've learned why, okay, so have a look at that, and please try to use it as much as you can so that it comes naturally to you, okay. So these are my example on qui, okay. It's not hard once you, and if you have been watching my videos on these question words, you will notice that there is a pattern, okay, into where those question words come in a sentence, in a question, okay? Please try to ask me questions using qui today. Why don't you do that? Okay, and I'd like to finish with one example, which in fact is slightly different to the other example, but I think it's useful to you. It's how are you going to say, who are you going to the cinema with? Okay, with, and that's the very important word here. Who are you going to the cinema with? Okay, but equally grammatically correct. No, you would say, with whom are you going to the cinema? Okay, now in French, it's quite simple. You start with. Avec qui es-tu allé au cinéma? Avec qui es-tu allé au cinéma? So literally translated as with who, okay, did you go to the cinema? Now you're going to say, but hold on a minute, did you? Why? Where is the past tense? The past tense is in tu es allé, and that means you went, okay? It's a verb aller conjugated with the auxiliary verb to be in the past. If you're not confident with that, please have a look at my videos on aller in the passé composé tense. Yeah? Okay. Now, avec qui es-tu allé au cinéma? But equally, you could say, with whom are you going to the cinema? Okay? So if you wanted to put it in near future using aller again, you could say, avec qui vas-tu au cinéma? If it's, see, I'm using two examples here to make sure that you are not confused by it. Maybe I have completely confused you now. Right. Now, another way of asking the question avec qui using est-ce que, avec qui est-ce que tu es allé au cinéma? Okay, it means exactly the same. Avec qui est-ce que tu es allé au cinéma? Okay, and another way of asking the same question is tu es allé au cinéma avec qui? You went to the cinema with whom or with who, okay? Now this one is more informal and used in everyday conversation. Quite often the question word will be put at the end of a question, okay? Now I have said that a lot over the last few lessons, okay, about asking questions in French, okay? So remember, you can use qui, who, or avec qui, with whom, okay? Now, I think that's it for me on the question word or interrogative pronoun qui, okay? I would like you to try to use these examples and make your own examples and put them in the comments below, okay? And why don't you subscribe to learnfrenchwithalexa.com where you will learn some awesome French. Oh, yes, you will. Have a look at learnfrenchwithalexa.com and tell me what you think. Au revoir, à bientôt. Bisous, bisous.